The following is a conversation with Claudio Marra. Claudio is the general manager of the European division at FSA. Claudio started working in the cycling industry at the age of 14 when he began working for the bicycle builder Rossin, where he learned frame building and welding. During his time at Rosin and then eventually Columbus, he witnessed the transition from steel to aluminum frames in the 1990s. Claudio Marra has a deep understanding of the Italian cycling industry and its evolution. He played a key role in promoting and supporting brands like Columbus, Rosin, and then he eventually went on to start the FSA European division, which has grown into one of the most important component brands in the cycling industry today. This conversation was interesting. It was, I think, a part of cycling history that I was fortunate to be able to document together with Claudio. Claudio Marra, thank you so much for coming on today. We are going to dive into the history of Italian cycling, the Italian cycling business. We are going to go deep today because for people that don't know, you have been around, you've seen a lot, and you're one of the most experienced people in the industry today that I know of. And so very, very excited to have you here today. Thank you for coming on.
Yes. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about my history, my experience that I had in the bike industry since many, many years. Yes, originally I started to do my first job when I was 14 years old because
Where
at
are
the
you
time...
from? Where are you from originally, Claudio?
Yes, good question. Yes, I was born in France. In France, because my parents emigrated in the 50s because in Italy was not enough job to do. So my father immigrated in 55 in France. Then I was born in 1963 in France, close to Metz, in the northeast of France, where there is a lot of Italian community in that area. But then on the 70s, arrived the bigger crisis of the manufacturing in that area. So my father decided to come back to Italy and restart again from it. And the time was more easy and a better opportunity in Italy for find a job and employer. And then I came back in Italy. I was 7 years old, and I continued my school from Italy. Yeah.
Where were you? Where did you guys move back to?
In Milano area, precisely in Cavenago. It's close to Cambiago, where there is probably one of the most important bicycle brand in that today is Colnago area, or at the time was also Rossin. That was a very famous bicycle brand at the time in the 80s. Yeah.
Okay, and so you said you started working at 14?
Yes, correct. Because in the meantime, my father passed away, so my family was not enough, how to say, resources to bring me to school. So my mother asked me if I can if I can find a job to help for the family and continue my school in the evening, because in Italy it was possible at the time to finish the high school in the evening from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m.
So you were supporting your family from 14.
Yes, exactly. Yes,
wow.
Exactly. Yeah. So at that point, instead to go to school during the day, I find a job. And I start my school in the evening. So to make my graduation in high school was from 79 to 83. Yes, I did all these years during the day working, and in the night and Saturday all day long going to school.
Where were you working?
Yes, but that's the point. That's the reason why I am now again in the bike industry, because in that time I was looking for a job, and my brother-in-law was also working in Rossin, that, as I said, was a bicycle brand. At the time was a very small artisan. He said, Claudio, if you want, we are looking to hire some artisanal employer, just start to do the first job. And for me was okay. I was just looking for a job. Any kind of offer was good for me. And I started to work in this bicycle company, Rossin.
What were you doing?
Really from the first day, the first job was to clean the floor. The first job I remember very well, cleaning the floor, cleaning the machines, cleaning the parts. And little by little I learned how to do the frames, so preparing the tubing, cutting the tubing, preparing the frames just to be welded. And then little by little I start to learn to weld the frame, because at the time was only only steel with lugs.
Okay, so it was they had the jigs And they would put the tubes on the jigs, and you would weld them in the jigs. Was the process?
Yes, the beginning, and then take out from the jigs and start to really finish the welding process for all the frames in all the corner of the frame. Yes, all the lugs need to be welded precisely. It was a very hard job because in the summer with the hot temperature it's very
no air conditioning.
So it was crazy. Of course, no air conditioning at the time.
So
Even in the winter was no warmer.
No heat.
Absolutely, because
Oh my god.
no heater.
Oh my gosh. So this was Rosin, and would Rosin have been artisan? So like, would it have been a premium brand? Was it a very big brand?
Yeah, at that time in the 80s was the same level of Colnago. Let me say probably even more because Rossin at the time has also their own professional team. At the time was Murella Rosin, and they also occupied many important teams like Magniflex and also Russian team, and also we won a lot of important races. So in the 80s was a very important brand. And today, that time was one of the owner was Domenico Garbelli, that was very smart and very clever, and was also able to travel in the world. So he got a lot of inspiration, especially for the colors, like renovation. And traveling in the world, Garbelli was the owner, and then also he learned about the new trend of the mountain bike. And Rossin was one of the first company in Europe, not in Italy, in Europe, to start to produce mountain bike frames in the beginning of the 81 or 82.
One of the first, because if Antonio Colombo is listening, he's going to say it was it was his, but you think it was the first. You're saying it was the first.
I tell you the true story.
Okay,
I tell you the true story.
Here we go.
The story was that Domenico Garbelli was always traveling with Antonio Colombo and Castelli. Was the three guys always together traveling in the show, visiting the show in every part of the world.
Because Antonio Colombo had Columbus tubes.
Exactly, and Castelli at the time was the owner of the clothing company.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so they were kind of the power trio, you could say.
Bravo. Exactly. Okay. And they went to a show in New York in the time. They discovered that was Tom Ricci offering the mountain bike frame, Gary Fisher, all these small, in the time, small brand. And they got a good inspiration, so they bought a bike from Ricci. They take back from New York to Italy. And they dismounted all the parts from the bike just to see how was make the frame, the geometry, the clearance for the tires, etc. So we made the check. We sent all the sizes to Antonio because to produce the frames, we need the tubes. Right. Then Columbus prepared the 3 sets of tubing to prepare the first mountain bike made in Europe.
So, and it was Rosin. Sounds.
But I tell you the story. Because in the time, Cinelli, that was owned by Colombo, they had a very nice brand, but they didn't produce frame in-house. They don't produce. They have a good bike, etc., but they is not inside the Cinelli company production.
Okay.
So in the time, we produced 3 frames. One for Rosin, one for Cinelli, that we gave to Antonio.
Okay. All right.
And one we sent to Campagnolo. Why? Okay. Because Campagnolo, we asked them to produce and develop the group set for that bike. And because we say, hey, that's the sorry?
Did they produce a group set from that?
They received the frame, but in the end they was not able to react because they didn't understand probably how to adapt. In the time was the cyclocross components that was need to adapt it to the mountain bike, but Campagnolo didn't react.
Okay, so sure. There's choices you have to
in the end, the second frame that we sent to Cinelli, to Antonio because was able to produce a stem handlebar in the time for Cinelli. Right. Yep. So was able to assembling the first complete bike in Europe made by Cinelli. At the time they called it Rampichino. And
so side by side.
Exactly. So we had the frame, but we didn't get the components to assembling the Rossin frame in our side. So that's the reason. In some way, we did the first production, but the first bike was made by Antonio. That's correct.
Okay. That's okay. Awesome. I knew there was going to be some gems, the first of many. So okay, so you're at Rossin. You're working with Rosin. You're doing really innovative stuff. It sounds like you're having a lot of fun. And you're traveling.
Exactly.
You're traveling with Maurizio Castelli, Antonio Colombo, and the Rosin. What was the name of the Rosin owner again?
Was Domenico Garbelli, was one
Domenico
of the
Garbelli.
shareholder. Yeah.
Okay. And so after your time at Rosin, what happened after that?
Yes, let's make this that in the end, I started the first day in Rossin was 1979, and I finished my job in 90s. So in the end, I started my first job. My first day job was cleaning the floor, but when I finished in Rossin, I was the production manager of the whole production. So at the time, in the meantime, we produce several thousand bicycle
Wow.
frames, so very high-end level for sure. Yeah.
And did you guys
But
move to aluminum
yeah.
at that time as well?
Yeah, we moved to aluminum. And also, we start to do some beginning of the carbon. We used to buy tubing carbon and glue with aluminum lugs just to get very light frame. It was just the beginning of the 90s, 91, 92, something like that. Yeah.
And were
Yeah.
you doing Far East sourcing, or was it still local, or did you have to were you kind of
Yes.
seeing that?
No, we have to source in the Far East because in that time in Italy there was not the technology how to produce aluminum frames and tubing. Just was really the beginning of the 90s. Yeah. Also because we got the inspiration from Klein. You remember Klein, American brand that
No.
already started to produce aluminum frames. You know?
Who was
Klein
it?
was one of the first. Klein, the name.
Klein, okay.
K-L-E. Yes, IN was one of the first brand that started to produce aluminum frames. Okay, sorry, very artisanal because before Klein was also Canon then they started to produce aluminum tubing for bicycle frame. Yeah, but was not really popular at the time, very beginning. Yeah.
And so when aluminum frames, you started seeing them, I guess there's two things happening there that I'm curious to understand better. What made you guys want to go to the Far East? You said that because aluminum was the driver for the Far East because people couldn't do it in Italy?
Exactly. We learned that aluminum was interesting for many reasons. First of all, you say weight, very light.
Sure.
And also more rigid. So stiffness of the frame at the time was important, especially for the mountain bike. And that was the reason why we have to follow this trend in the beginning of the 90s. And then, aluminum became very popular after a while in the 90s also for road bike, every kind of use.
So you could just feel the market telling you that aluminum was the way to go. You could feel it.
Exactly. Not for the, for the whole market, but was a important part of the market, especially for the mountain bike, where the weight was very important in the beginning. Also because in the mountain bike, the use is different than the road, so we need to find the good compromise. For example, for mountain bike, the stiffness and the size of the frame was more, so was important to have a bigger diameter of tubing, while on the road frame, the use of the frame for road is different, so they be bigger sizes, so need to be more flexible, need to be absorbing the vibration. So it's the time we had to spend some effort to find the good tuning of the use, because the diameter of the tubing for road is different than mountain bike. But once we find the best solution, was a big success in the 90s. Yeah.
So it sounds like you have a lot of experience in product. Is that true?
Yeah, exactly. Because also in the time when they used to work at Rossin, we also had a lot of innovation. In the time, if you remember, especially the time trial frames was with the big wheels on the back and the small wheels on the front. Like we had on the back was a 28-inch wheel, and on the front was a 24 or 26, especially to get advantage on the time trial. Like Francesco Moser time record, if you remember, that was the situation. So we had a lot of tests on that direction, also changing a lot of the position, changing a lot of the cockpit in order to have a bad geometry for the rider. So we did a lot of innovation, a lot of experiment at that time. Yeah, exactly.
And is that what
the
it?
Reason.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, this was the reason why I had the chance to move in Columbus. Yeah.
So yeah, so before we get to Columbus, so you were working at Rossin. It sounds like you had a lot of experience, a lot of innovation. It sounds like product. You were doing production, but also product at that time. Right you were kind of in the middle of cycling in Italy in general, really in the thick of it with racing and everything like that. And then at a certain point, you said you moved to Columbus. Why did you move to Columbus?
Exactly, because in my bottom of my heart, I had always the wish, the dream to travel in the world, to meet people, to discover location, to see new areas. That was always my target. But of course, staying in Rossin was not easy to do that. In the end, becoming, to say, like a consultant, because we had an engineer in Columbus that was a very good metallurgic engineer, but he had no experience about the tubing and about the bicycle frame. So every time the engineer was developing the new tubing, he came to me in Rossin asking my opinion. So I can assembling some samples. I give him my feedback, for example, how to maybe increase the thickness, maybe change the diameter, change the shape, change the diameter. I gave them a lot of suggestions how to improve the new product. So they learn about my suggestions, and they went back and make the modification of the mold, the modification of the tools, come back again, do the test. So this process, maybe to develop a tubing set, it takes probably 6, 9 months, maybe 1 year. So very long process, very expensive. So in that time, Columbus was really the leading company in the bicycle industry in the world.
Sure, of course.
So I got an idea. I said, wow, if I can move to Columbus, I can have the chance to travel in the world. So that was my target. So and I say to the engineer,
you just wanted to travel. Like that was your dream.
Yeah.
That was your goal.
Yeah, the best was combine a business and traveling together. So in this way, I can do both. So
have you always been kind of curious about travel? About had you been able to travel in the past before that, or it was what
No.
kind of made you like where did this come from? This passion about seeing the world.
I don't know why. I don't know the reason, but since I was a child, I always the inspiration to travel in the world and discover location, people, areas that give me more curious to learn about the situation everywhere. That was always my dream. Yeah.
And you couldn't do that. You couldn't do that at Rossin.
No, because it was impossible. How to say, during the time we have to work, so you have to stay in the production, close to the production. But if I can move to sales, then I can go around the world and can sell the product. I can meet people. I can try to propose my product. So it's a chance to have a good experience traveling, meet people, paid by the company that you are working together and do the sales.
So had you
So at
done?
that time, as I said,
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
yeah. So I get the idea that maybe Columbus has is a very strong brand in the world. They have connection everywhere. So if I am the connection of the Columbus, so changing my position from production to sales can be an opportunity. So I say to the engineer from Columbus, I say, but instead to do the product, come back here and then do the change back and forth. Why you don't hire me? So in this way, during the development, I already can give you immediately the best suggestion.
Sure.
In this way, you can go early on the final product. In this way, you can save a lot of cost and time. He said, yes, good idea. But he say, are you willing to move to Columbus? Say, yes, if you give me the chance to do what I want. So, for example, to be on the technical department, be in touch with customer, maybe sometimes do the opportunity to traveling around the world and give my support to the customer. So it can be interesting. So in the end, in 91, 92, yes, I decided to move to Columbus. So they hired me, and I start to work in very close cooperation with the technical department. And then technical also, as because Columbus is a very technical product, it's not easy to sell the product because the tubing need to be managed and worked by the production people. But as I had a big experience, when I went to talk with the customers of Columbus, who we spoke the same language, so it was very easy for me to explain how to find solution, how to improve the quality, how to improve the capacity, the production. And then little by little, I gained the trust from my personality, from my experience to all the Columbus customers. And then I went to Antonio, say, Antonio, but why you don't take me instead to keep me occasionally in touch with customers so I can be close to the salespeople, I can become a technical salespeople, and then I have the chance to travel and give the best support to customers, and then we can gain more business. He said, yes, why not? Good idea. So as my chance, my lucky is that I was able to speak very well French because it was my first language. So in this opportunity, he say, Antonio, why you don't go yet? You can follow the Italian market, the Latin market, like Italy, France, Spain, etc. Then you can see the result, and little by little we can see if it's a good decision that you can go to support the salespeople. And then was a very good decision because in 1 or 2 years in France we doubled the turnover. In Spain we doubled the turnover because we had a good chance, especially at the time we gained all the business from Reynolds in France. That was very strong in France in the 90s, like selling tubing to Peugeot, to MBK, and many artisanal frame builder in France. In some way, we became the leader of the market in this area. So we really did a very good business. So Antonio was very happy. So I got the chance to start to travel in Italy, started to travel in France, Spain, in Benelux. Also in the time we had the opportunity to sell from my side. And I was in charge in the beginning in Columbus in this area. But then in 97, yeah.
So this is great. I mean, this is a really amazing story. And so you went from at Rosin, you had a ton of experience about producing frames. And so Columbus was coming to you and they kept saying, tell us what to do. What do we, how should we fix this? And you were giving them feedback. And at a certain point, you're just like, look, I can just do this for you guys. You had enough experience on the bike side. So you came over and you were handling the product development, the technical development, and taking that technical experience and putting it in front of customers was sort of a really nice recipe because you knew how to do frames, you knew about the tubes, and so you could just go to these frame builders and you could just talk their language and really kind of, and you were able to build up all this business in Spain and France, like you said, in Benelux. But wasn't there though some pressure coming from aluminum at that time? Because it sounds like an amazing success story, but at the same time, aren't you seeing like clouds, like dark clouds coming in that Columbus needs to change their business model?
Absolutely, yes. In fact, in the 90s, Columbus also started to develop aluminum tubing set. And then we had, in the time, the first was, the name of the tubing was Altec. And then we had Altec Plus, that was in 5,000 aluminum series, 7,000 aluminum series. And then we had a lot of production of aluminum and steel. In the time, probably in the 90s, the aluminum production in Columbus was probably more than 50 or 60% of the tubing capacity.
I didn't know that.
Aluminum, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So Columbus was producing aluminum at the time.
Absolutely, absolutely. We had a lot of results, like we had in the road, the mountain bike, for example. In the road, we had Chiappucci, we had Pantani, we had many important riders using our tubing in aluminum with a very good result. Chiappucci arrived the second place in the Tour de France under 94, 95 after the second place in the Rhine. Also, Pantani in the Carrera team, we also used in the time the aluminum tubing made by the tubing from Columbus. And also on the mountain bike, we had a lot of champions who were winning the Olympics and also on the World Champion with the Giovanna Bonazzi on the downhill. We had Acquaroli, so we had many riders using our aluminum tubing. Yeah.
So there was a migration to aluminum that was successful for Columbus.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. All the 90s was a really big success on the aluminum tubing. I remember. Also, I tell you another funny story. In the time, Colnago was not doing any aluminum frame, only steel. So as the aluminum becoming very, very popular, so I took a frame from a French customer, and I took a frame to Colnago. I say, Ernesto, I want to tell you that you should consider to do aluminum frame from Colnago because now the market is really strong. There's a big demand, and I really suggest you to consider this. He looked to me and said, Claudio, you are telling me that I am Colnago, what I have to do? Are you crazy? Go out. So he really sent me out to the office, was offended, like I teach him what to do. And but my intention was in a humble way to share my experience with him, just to give him an idea. And in a way, I was very disappointed because I had a very, very honest, very constructive suggestion
Sure.
to him. I don't want to give him any problem. But then after 4 or 5 months, he called me. He said, Claudio, I need to talk to you. Come to my office. Okay, I went to his office. I said, yes. He said, Claudio, you know, I had an idea. What? I want to do aluminum frames.
It was his idea.
Yeah, of course.
It was his idea.
Say, okay, yes, a good idea, Ernesto. But what is it? No, but you know, my problem is that I don't know how to produce aluminum frame, but I have to find a subcontractor that can do the frame for me, but very confidential. Nobody need to know about that I'm doing the frame for Colnago because I cannot lose my face in front of the market. I say, yes, for sure. I know the good guy for you, and let's do it this way. Then I take Colnago the time to this company in Veneto area, close to Padua, and they introduced the guy. The guy was a young guy, very serious, very competent in terms of producing aluminum frame. And they explained the story. Say the name was Simone. Simone, again, didn't take you Colnago here, but you have to be very confidential. Nobody need to know that you're doing the frame for him because it's going to be important. And at the time, I remember the first year, they started to produce for Colnago 5,000 aluminum frames the first year.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. And then little by little, the numbers became crazy, much more important, but need to be also maybe second level. So I give them a lot of solution to improve the capacity and also to reduce the cost. So in the end, was a very good idea from Colnago to produce aluminum frame.
So, okay, so we're in the aluminum revolution. It sounds like you were able to ride that wave. And then what happened? What was next? Because we know more clouds are coming with carbon fiber, right? And I guess
exactly.
Tell us about what happened in that regard, because I know then we're going to get into FSA, which is a company that you started. So yeah, I don't know. Continue, please.
Yes, the step was in this. Let me explain to you the steps. So,
okay.
But in the end of the 90s, another material become more important was titanium. Before to go on the carbon success on the frame and the back industry was titanium, but titanium
it's
everybody
expensive.
Recognized.
It's
yes,
expensive.
Exactly. Recognize the quality, the advantage, but the cost is huge. And also, it's not easy how to produce titanium because in Europe was not this technology. The technology came from US because of the aeronautic industry. But as you know, that in the time, Merlin, also Seven, many American brands start to become popular in US because of these titanium frames. And some European brands also start to learn how to produce titanium. For example, one of the first to produce titanium in Italy was De Rosa on the 94, 95 in the time, just on the beginning. And De Rosa still now produce a titanium frame in a very high quality. The second was also Bianchi. Bianchi also started to produce in the middle of the 90s. They also made a frame celebration about 110 years of the Bianchi history, made in titanium, also with the tubing made by Columbus. And also was Tomasini that started to produce, because Tomasini had a good contact in the US. They learned to do titanium. They also did this experience. And not many other companies in Europe. Then, of course, Passonic started on the end of the 90s, but in different way.
But titanium didn't take, though. So everybody thought that titanium was going to be the next move, but it didn't. It wasn't.
Was not a big volume because, as I said, was very expensive. The production, the cost, let's say that probably was 4 times the cost of the aluminum frame. So that's the reason why it was very interesting, very nice, very well accepted, but too expensive. So the volume was very limited. And Then, at the end of the 90s, after the titanium start to have the interest about the carbon. Carbon start to become interesting because in the middle of the 90s was also some brand that start to produce carbon frame like TVT in France. They start to have these frames from France in also with the carbon tubing and carbon lugs glued together, but not monocoque. In the end was also, if you remember, Corima. Corima today is popular for the wheels, but they start to produce carbon frames. But then because it was a completely different shape, the UCI came with some rules to have the two triangles. Corima was only one monocoque with a bigger tubing in the middle was not legal, so they had to change the business model. They stopped, they moved the technology from the frames to the wheels, the Corima. But at the time, the carbon technology came from France because the aeronautic industry as well, Spatial from south of France, they got a lot of experience engineer for composite and they start to produce like carbon frames. And that's the reason why one of the first was also look to produce and sell carbon frames in the end of the 90s. And that's the reason why start to become popular because in the end the composite was a reasonable cost, very light, and then you also very nice design, very nice shape, so it was easy to get this direction. And then started the history of, let's say, on the beginning of the 2000, the carbon material become really the exotic and the nice product to follow up. Yeah.
And so so you started seeing the carbon fiber come into play, and you were still at Columbus doing sales. When did you begin? So I guess what is the next step here when you started thinking about doing FSA, or was there something in the middle?
Yes, as I said, then in the 97, I was promoted from area manager to sales manager, worldwide Columbus sales manager. So from 97, I start to travel the world. So I really start to travel to US, to Taiwan, to Asia, everywhere in the Europe. So in the end, my dream become true. So I start finally to travel the world, meet people, visiting locations. So from 97, I was very happy to get my dream and finalized. So that was really my passion. So I can do my job the proper way because I have the best experience. I can meet people, and that was the best recipe for my career. And really doing my job with passion. So the result was really, how to say, easy to get. And then little by little, I start to build my reputation. In the end of 90s, so I meet people from US and started to work also with many American brands like Specialized, with Cannondale, with Marine. So many American brands started to buy tubing from Columbus thanks to my introduction. And then this American brand that used to produce bicycle in Taiwan, they get in touch with the owner of FSA. On that time, many Taiwanese companies, because it was a very big demand into the market, many brands, they opened the facilities in China to produce frames, parts, components, etc. Because the intention was to increase the capacity and to reduce the cost. But the owner of FSA has a different idea at the time. Instead to go to China and increase the capacity, reduce the cost, he had the idea to open the European branch office for FSA in order to stay close to the market, in order to produce a new product that really the market from Europe was asking, and speaking the same language, the same time, and get also the feedback in some way to get the right end of the European market from FSA. And I was looking for who can be the person that can run this business. So Douglas, the owner of FSA, he asked to many customers if someone have some name to suggest to be able to run this business. And many times my name was mentioned from many customers. So Douglas said, oh, everybody say Claudio Marra. Claudio Marra, so it means this can be the good guy. So in the end, they contact me and they asked me about the idea to open the FSA office for Europe, for branch office, for warranty, for development, for R&D, for sales, etc. Oh, interesting, I say, but in that time I was very happy, very satisfied to stay close to Columbus. But say, please consider my proposal. Say, okay, I made a check about the product from FSA. I made an exercise, a business plan, how to approach the European market, what to do for the sales, for the price, for the marketing, blah, blah, blah. So, but that was an exercise for myself. So I sent my presentation to my business plans to Douglas. Called me back, said, Claudio, very interesting. I want to talk to you. I say, wait, Douglas, next month I will be in Tokyo show. On the way back from Tokyo, I will stop in Taiwan to visit some customers. So if you want, we can have dinner. We can meet each other for the first time. But okay, will be interesting to meet. Yes, okay, please, I'll wait you. So to make it short, we met in Taiwan in November, November 2000. And we had dinner together. So he asked me many questions about my idea, my experience, about how to approach the European market. But my idea was just to share with him some suggestions, like I am friendly with everybody. And then, to make it short, he really made a big offer to me that, wow, he shocked to me about, wow, I cannot refuse immediately. Let me think about. So I came back to Italy, so I got some thought about the thing to FSA. I was the approach, the product, the market. In the end, I realized the chance that I really can start to have in some way my own company, because in the deal that he offered to me was also some shares of the company. So I can get in some way for free some shares, and
Ownership.
it's always interesting idea.
It is.
And there is sort of, yeah.
Had you ever thought about wanting to
So in the end,
to be an owner? Yeah. Had you ever thought of that before?
No, I was never able, because need a lot of money, but that was not my possibility, so I never got this idea. But this chance really changed my position. And then in the end, after 1 month of idea, thinking about, etc., so in the end, I accept his proposal, and we opened the office in 2001. What is the fun story is that I opened the office in the Rossin building.
What?
First time. That's crazy, because in the 90s, then the company Rossin was sold to another company that was Cicli Regina di Romagna. In some way, the company in the end didn't go well, and they reduced the size of the company. In some way, half of the building was empty. So the owner of Cicli Regina di Romagna called me, Claudio, I heard that you are going to open a new company, blah, blah, blah. I said, yes, it's true, but I want to offer the place. I said, no, but it's too expensive because it's too big, it's too nice. It was in front of the highway in A4 in the Autostrada. It was one of the best and trafficked Autostrada in Italy, so it was very expensive. I said, no, I cannot afford, it's too expensive. I want to give me your price, it will be my price. So I made him an offer. In the end, he accepted, and so I opened the FSA office in the Domenico Garbelli office, in the Rossin office, the same location. I took half of the building for the warehouse, half of the office, and then I opened FSA in the same building. That was crazy. So in the end, I come back from where I started.
So, and that must have been really kind of a nostalgic moment where you were able to kind of be in that place again. Must have been special.
Yeah.
So yeah, FSA, can you help people understand? FSA was started in Taiwan by, you said, Douglas?
Douglas, yes. Okay, Douglas is the second generation. The first generation was his father. He started the company in 1973, started to produce bearings for headsets and bottom bracket for many, many years. The main customers, you can imagine, was Merida, Giant, and the local assembler. But then Douglas was graduated in the university in Canada, like mechanical engineers. And in the 90s, he took over the company from his father. That he realized, Douglas, that it cannot be for the future to be always a subcontractor and selling very small parts. So he had also from inside the idea to create a brand. So he created the name of Full Speed Ahead from California with the intention to produce a very high-end product for mountain bike and BMX, because California at that time was really the area where all the best mountain bike and BMX came from. And then they started in the 93 to sell this part with the Full Speed Ahead brand name. And little by little they expand the business, so creating cranks, creating a headset for BMX, very, very high quality, very nice design, very good price quality relation. and they become quite large. And was a very successful business for them. But then in the end of the 90s, so that's the reason why Douglas really want to become important also in Europe. That was the reason to start
work
to
with
have
you.
the European branch office, and yes, to find this guy that was me to create the brand in Europe. In the
So
time was already few distributors existing in Italy, Germany, UK, and France. But then with my arrival, of course, the business was much bigger, expanded. Yeah.
and so from 2001, you started the office, and it sounds like you knew exactly what you needed to do. I mean, it sounds like you had the experience. You needed to talk to bike shops, talk to probably OEM was a big part of it. What was? I mean, can you tell us a little bit about? Because I'm talking to entrepreneur. I mean, different entrepreneur. Because in this case, it's a very entrepreneurial type activity where you're like, I have to open an office. If I don't sell, I can't pay my salary, right? It was probably just you, and you had to go out and you had to sell. And
Correct. In the very beginning, we was two employers, me and one employer. So when I was traveling, I had one guy. The name was Giulio, and the guy was in charge for everything. So putting the order in the computer, going to
right,
the warehouse,
yeah.
preparing the delivery, these kind of things together. And then, of course, that was really the first 2-3 months. I didn't believe that we hired people, and then we became very fast, very quickly, like a small company with 5, 6, 10 employers. And now in our situation, now we are more than 25 people, including 5 engineers. They do R&D.
And so how is the company structured now? You have probably more of a commercial arm here in Europe, as well as R&D, and the production's all in Taiwan?
Exactly. Let me say what was also the key factor for the success, because with my introduction in Columbus, be in touch also with the team, etc., I was able to be in touch with many teams. And the teams really gave to us, teams very high-end, like World Tour teams, rider, very
Sure.
professional mechanics, really gave us a lot of information, suggestion, because what is important to know, we do a lot of tests for the product to approve the quality. But the real test of the product is on the field.
Yep.
When you
In
really take
competition.
on the extreme level of the competition. And then that was the success. So it really gave us the possibility to improve our product. The second, we had in touch with a lot of agency for the creativity in terms of graphic and in terms of design. So in Italy, we still have today a big advantage in terms of creativity design. So all the product that you have now in the catalog, since we start in Italy, are designed in Italy. It means the shape, the design, the graphic, the color, etc. And then, of course, the best recipe to have this information like design, technical information, etc., with the technology we have in Taiwan, and this made the very good success for the product. That was for us the way to gain leader the market shares in the world. And then today, our office in Italy is leading the marketing, the design, the sales, also sometimes the direction. For example, the drivetrain group set have been developed in Italy, and then everything is industrialized in Taiwan because there is the capacity, the technology. So that's the reason why we have a very strong and close connection between Italy and Taiwan. And US also, we have another office. They also do the development regarding aerodynamics, because our office in US is in Seattle, where there is many engineers, very strong, very good for aerodynamics solution, because in Seattle there is the Boeing, as you can imagine. Yeah.
And so you're able to get in touch with engineers, tech, but it sounds like the core of your offering is performance, very much performance driven. So innovation. You said that having the Taiwanese, so you've got the Taiwanese production with over 50 years of, sounds like the company will have its 50th anniversary, had its 50th anniversary this year. So you have an incredibly powerful team of production that can provide high performance, high quality products. You have an Italian team. Yourself was kind of spearheaded the sales side of it. And then you were able to kind of tap into the talent, the design talent of Italy. So it sounds like an amazing recipe for success. I do want to ask, though, there is a tendency for brands like yours to merge with a bike brand.
Okay.
And I don't want to
Now-
put you on this. I don't want to put you on the spot here, but it just feels like that's where the market's going. And I know you guys do wheels, which is definitely a huge part of it, but strategically, is that something that you guys have considered? Or if you have or haven't, why? Because that's what I'm seeing. I see it with Cervelo did it. I see it with, Pinarello have their own components. So where do you stand on that?
That's a good question. And yes, you really got the point. I mean, today the market, especially after the COVID, there is a big evolution and transformation, especially on this period that is a very difficult and crisis period for the bike industry after the COVID. And really are making the bicycle brand to change the strategy for the future. This process already started a few years ago, but now it's going to be more and more deep in that direction. What I mean that all the parts, the components are integrated into the bike. As you said, every brand now has a proprietary, the cockpit, the wheels and parts. And maybe in the future also, who knows, maybe even the drivetrain will be under one name of the bike.
Could be, yeah.
Not going
with
to be
the frame and the motor.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Everything will be integrated. So our direction, I use this like an example. FSA probably is becoming more and more deeper, like Brembo brakes in the automotive industry. What
Okay.
means Brembo
Very
brakes?
specialized. Very specialized.
Exactly.
High
Means
end.
Brembo, for example, they are used and they develop the technology, the innovation on the Formula One, on the MotoGP. They are close to the top car brand. They develop the technology. But then on the production side for the everyday cars, Brembo produced the brakes under Mercedes, under BMW, under I don't know, Jaguar, etc. So they developed the technology, but then they use the know-how to produce a branded product. That means FSA, for example, today we develop our product with the top teams, with the Jumbo, with the Merida, with the many top brands, also on the mountain bike side with Canon, etc. But then we produce the parts and components under the name of our customers.
Okay. So you're doing some OEM as well.
ODM, yes, exactly, for that direction. So you see many parts. Maybe they are branded, as I said, the Canon, the Merida, etc. But in the end, they are made by us.
And if
In
you
some way we
continue
we
to
share
be
the technology.
if you continue to be innovative, these brands will continue to work with you guys.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so you're being very specialized on this. And is there a way to get your branding back? Is that a goal?
No, because in the end, we will be, as I said, a very small quantity from our brand, but very high end, especially, how to say, recognizing the know-how. But in the end, the mass production will be under other brands. That's the reason why today Brembo is the number one company in the world for brakes. But if you go to the garage to see the cars, maybe all the brakes are made by Brembo, but in all different names. And that's today the trend that we're going to have. And I am pretty sure, maybe it's going to take a few years, but all the bicycle brands also will be proprietary of the drivetrain. So probably you will not see...
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
You will not see more and more in the future SRAM, Shimano. For sure, they are strong. They are number one. They will be today. They are really the reference into the market. But I'm sure the bicycle brand, as soon as they can have an alternative to have their own shifter under the name, that will be the first thing to do. Of course, not easy. It's going to take time. This already happened on the motorcycle. If I remember, in the 80s and 90s, many motorcycles, they used to have the motor from one brand, the Marzocchi forks, Tomaselli grips, and all this brand used to be assembled on the motorcycle, and it was the market. But little by little, especially in the end of the 90s, the motorcycle, they had only one brand, Yamaha, Suzuki,
Sure.
and they do everything, so forks, brakes, but even made by Marzocchi or Tomaselli, etc., but only under one name.
So
And
you're
so probably the bike is going to follow the same trend.
and so you're investing. Obviously, you have the Vision brand, which is a high-end wheel brand, and then the components are going to be the absolute top level world tour. And if you continue to focus on innovation, that you can continue to be ahead and highly specialized and positioned well in the market. But you said that these macroeconomic changes, which are bike brands, have integrated certain components just become integrated, the styles and the trends go that way, and you guys have to kind of adapt in that way. To start your own bike brand, has that ever been in the cards?
No, impossible, because once we start our own bike brand, when we become competitor of our customers, and then it's not going to be possible. Absolutely.
Okay, so it's either
we
one
do
or the
everything
other.
except exactly, absolutely.
Okay. Wow. Well, I appreciate you answering that question. That was a tough question. I really appreciate that.
It's a pleasure, absolutely.
So where do you see? I know COVID happened. COVID was a mess. The overstocks are crushing the market right now. Can you give the people? Today is December 15th, 2023. Can you give the people, because you have an incredibly strong view at the market. You have, the ownership of FSA is in Taiwan. You're in Italy. You have an office in America. What's going on right now, Claudio? What are you seeing?
Good point. I see a very difficult period, especially as you say, there is a crazy inventory now in the market that is blocking the development. But I guess it's going to take another 1 or 2 years to become to the normal market trend. So in the meantime, if the bicycle company or components, they have not made the good choice, the good decision about the strategy, and they will be in very difficult period. I am sorry to say that you already saw in the past few weeks, a Ghost company in Germany was closed, the Rally company in UK was closed, also the brand like Cherry Action, Wiggle, like online shop, they've been closed. So, and I hope to be wrong, but I probably will see in the next coming months other brands going to suffer a lot. And again, as I said, it's gonna take probably 1 or 2 years to clean the inventory that was overproduced in the last year, and then come back to normal for sure. The good thing is that people now really consider bicycle really like an important tool for sport, for mobility, for many opportunity. So the bicycle will be always successful in the future. Just now to follow this 1 or 2 year tough period for the moment. Yeah.
Just everybody has to kind of hold their breath and hunker down. Do you have any thoughts about what happened in terms of with regards to bike shops? That's something that I'm always like very curious about, how there was this rush to online, right? Everybody was like, oh, now everybody's going to buy online now. And during COVID, it was necessary. But now it feels like, that has cooled definitely. And the bike shop, I don't know if it's having a renaissance, but, bike shops are more important now than ever, in a sense that they provide the service, they provide a destination. What are you seeing in the market in terms of like bike shops versus online? What are you seeing happening right now?
I see now, because of the situation, also the normal shops are also improving a lot. So they have the standard shop, but every shop, they also created the virtual shop.
So they all have their own. They all have their own online
Yes.
stores. Okay.
Yes, and I am in touch with many traditional dealers, and they say that probably today already 20 or 30% of the business come from the online. So that's a good thing. So in some way, all the traditional shops, they are using this new solution, having good results. And that will be also good cooperation and connection with the top brand, as Specialized or Trek. Let's take an example. You can buy the Specialized bike, but it's delivered on the shop near your house. Sure. Or the shop that you like. So this will be probably the winner solution for the future. Like in the US, for example, there is Canyon, Yamaha, etc. They sell the bike online, but you can get the delivery through Velofix. So Velofix, the van, take the bike
Sure.
in your house. They call you, you go down, and they fix the bike in front of you under your size. They make the specific tune. They are sure that the quality of the bike is assembled in the perfect way. So I see a good compromise in this solution. The online and the traditional dealer shop, they have to work together to find the best service, the best quality, the best timing in terms of also logistic and delivery. Yeah.
But you also said, so you said that there is a lot of consolidation happening on the big brands, but I feel like there's still plenty of room for, the niche brands, for people that want to build up their own bikes or have a bike built, spec'd out. I mean, I feel like that's still pretty strong. So I guess, how are you seeing in your experience, how are you seeing the market for these, not like flagship stores, but the independent bike dealers? What are you seeing in those stores today? You're saying they're going online a bit, but how are they going to be successful in the next 5 years?
Yes, good point. Okay, we have to distinguish, for example, on the bicycle range, we have the 3 level, no? The top, the medium, and the low end.
Entry level.
For sure, entry level and medium end, usually the customer, they accept as it is. So they prefer to get the best price, the best quality, and they accept that as a delivery and offered by the bike man. For the high end, you're right. There is still some customer that really want to do the custom build in terms of sizes, dimension, product. In that area, there is still a good quantity of high value customer that really want to go in the direction. Thanks God, still there is this trend. So the top customer, they are really the passion, they have money. They really ask, like today with the shop, they say probably 25% of the business comes from these, let me say, gold dealer, enthusiast customers that really want to invest to get the best of the best. And that for sure make a very good opportunity, like a high-end brand, as you say. For us, for other brands, they offer very high-end components that is compatible with the bicycle for sure.
Right, and so for you guys, that is a very important part. It also gives your brand a place to be seen and to be talked about, right? To continue to consider the work that you guys do. So, well, Claudio, this was a lot of fun. We're coming up on an hour. I know you're a very busy person. Thank you so much for doing this. This was really fun. If people want to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
Easy. Go on LinkedIn. You can find me, Claudio Marra. So you will find me. You can send me a message. I will be happy to follow up with you. No problem. I am available.
Okay. Well, thank you, Claudio. And Merry Christmas.
And a good weekend and Merry Christmas to everybody.
Okay.